indie filmmakers have a serious problem, and there's nobody that's really going to be able to fix it for you. And in the past, and for a long time, there's been people that have attempted to try to solve this problem. But as technology and as the online space progresses, this is becoming a bigger problem that also doesn't have a very clear solution. However, I'm going to share all of my thoughts after I watch a handful of videos and see if we can come up with some action steps for you to solve this problem, because indie filmmaking is a puzzle and we're going to solve it, if not in this video, at least on this channel. So stick around and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to watch these videos from a IndieWire conference that they talked about film distribution and viewership. And that's really the problem. Indie filmmakers are not able to get people to watch their films. That's not consistently, but there's way more indie filmmakers who are getting very low viewership online, even when they give the film away for free, than people who actually get viewership / maybe make some money. So I have a handful of clips. I'll be talking through these, but these are really the people that are at the forefront of the distribution and thought leaders for indie filmmakers. I agree and disagree on some levels here. Here we go.
So I wanted to jump into one of the most interesting things I found about your study, Carrie, is so you have this underserved audience, and as you say, you know, how many services do you need to subscribe to? It's like we were counting on our current list of like the top 30 films released in 2024 for IndieWire, and it's like it would require subscribing to 8 services, which nobody's going to do. So
yeah,
talk about the idea that
so currently the indie market, I believe, is like we have 8 different sort of mainstream services that you can pay for. That's crazy. And then also think about all of the other like smaller channels, like smaller websites. Like I know Indie Film Hustle TV, right? I talked to Alex Ferrari on a podcast. He's created his own little service for indie filmmakers as well. So it's just like there's a lot of services that exist, and people can't pay for all of them.
Theory could be a great way to address that audience, which would be to have an omnibus service that addressed independent films. I mean, obviously there are many services that do that already. You know, you've got Criterion, you've got Mubi. It's not like it's never been thought of before.
And I think the big point that's going into all of this is the fact that everybody feels it. Filmmakers feel it. Viewers and fans of indie film feel it. They feel that they want to watch and support indie filmmaking, especially quality indie filmmaking, because it interests them and they don't know where to look. If they find something on YouTube, they can't consistently find stuff they like on YouTube. And if they go on a streaming platform, it's either doesn't have any or it's way too scattered. And so we have a culture that is interested in indie film and they don't know where to go just to find it consistently. And you also have to, to be honest with you, you have to wade through a lot of crap to find the stuff you like. And I think there's some element to the industry that's just like, we want a bunch of quality indie films that matter, that feel good, where we can feel good supporting creators with promise, or even just have made it and just want to stay in the indie market, right?
Right. But they're also very specific services. And so if there were, one ring to rule them all, how, I would love to hear the three of you kind of talk about why that could be possible or why it couldn't be possible.
I'll just dive in just to get the ball rolling here. I mean, I think it is possible. And I think the way that would happen in the indie space isn't the same as how that would happen in the Hollywood studio space. I think from the point of view of the culture, of the people who want to watch independent film, of the diversity of the audience, of the diversity of the content, probably the worst way to do that, and economically the least successful, would be to try to buy up everything. Let's just buy up everything and make a big giant streamer that's an indie streamer. Well, economically that won't work in terms of the size of the audience, the marketing required, the cost of acquisition. But I feel like, and I'll just leave it at this, I feel like there is a way to incentivize smaller distributors, smaller platforms, smaller places to continue. I love all of those platforms, all that you mentioned, and all of the distributors, but a lot of them don't have enough economic value anymore, and this goes right to the filmmakers in the room. Independent film has always been financed by home entertainment. And with pay one streaming, not really buying a lot of independent film anymore or as much, and Tubi maybe doing a lot, but on a per film revenue basis, that rev share doesn't generate enough to cover the cost of production. So from a filmmaker point of view and from a distributor, small distributor point of view, putting together a single place and allowing a coalition of distributors to share in placing their libraries there, programming there, and share in the revenue from it and benefit from direct data to the audience and the marketing that the platform can do. I feel like it's an idea worth trying, but it will. The difficulty is going to be getting people to collaborate that have established businesses, and that may be the non-starter.
Okay, she brings up a very valuable point, and I know this video is titled, do this or stay invisible forever. And we're going to get to action steps that you should take to position yourself for 2025. But we have to cover this ground. We have to figure out what is being thought about in the indie filmmaking market so we can project what's the future so that we can take action steps that aligns with that future. So it's very valuable to cover the fact that people are thinking about how do we market indie filmmakers. Hollywood, their primary outlets are streamers, Netflix, Peacock, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, HBO Max. There's more, all right, Hulu. And that is just not going to work for the indie film industry. In some ways, it doesn't even work for Hollywood because Disney Plus, they're losing tons of money every quarter on Disney Plus. The subscriber need to maintain such a bloated production company like Disney, it doesn't translate. So they have to really change their business model. People like Netflix are succeeding not only because they're the biggest, but because they've never operated outside of that business model. They've catered their entire business to that model where Disney has not, right? And so they're basically saying, which I sort of agree with, that there is not a one-size-fits-all option for indie filmmakers and indie film to just be on a paid streaming service because there's too much indie filmmaking. There's too much goals. Like there's too many call to actions. There's too many ambitions inside of the indie filmmaking space. Every production house, every individual filmmaker all has different goals with what they want their filmmaking to be. And since they paid for it, since they own it, they don't want to essentially align always with everybody else. And so on some level, a streaming service for indie filmmakers can't work. A streaming service only kind of works if they are creating original content or they are licensing content that they hand select, right? And with the indie filmmaking space, you just can't do that. Let's listen to this next clip here.
And the independent world seems to think if you build it, they will come, and that just doesn't work. And that's one of the reasons I work with brands is because they understand marketing and they can drive traffic to something. So we have little tiny films that are brand funded that end up getting gazillions of views. It's not because they're any better than that other film that premiered at Sundance. It's because we actually spent money on marketing and targeted our audience. And I think whoever builds this service needs to use data and smart marketing to bring.
And it's very inefficient to do that. Of course, every individual film should know its audience and try to speak to them and grow them and market to them in whatever ways you can. But it is incredibly inefficient and sadly quite ineffective to market film by film by film by film individually, and even small distributor slates. It's really hard. If there were a place for people to go where the platform itself, I think it could help.
I mean, that's a classic struggle for indie film is, you know,
It's not new.
Yeah, that's it.
Very interesting. So they're totally right. It's extremely difficult to market individual filmmakers' movies. Streamers like Netflix doesn't even know how to really market their own content. Like if you notice, if you go on different Netflix apps, like obviously it's going to be catered to the viewing history, but on some level, it's like there's little small movies or shows that aren't even being marketed correctly to their own audience, and it's their film. So if you try to do that with the entire indie film market, that's dang near impossible. It really is. And so you have to have, in some way, an algorithm that is dedicated to solving the problem for you. And AI is helpful for that, but it hasn't been built yet. Let's go to the next clip.
Can I ask you a question? How many indie films, new U.S. indie films, are on Tubi every year? New, not the library ones. I tried to get that number from your colleagues. I couldn't get that.
But this guy works at Tubi.
I might be as challenging to get that answer from as well. A lot. And I think it varies from month to month. And for us, it's about what is available too, because you have to remember that many of these films are managed in a disaggregated way by independent licensors and production companies who have existing exclusive or semi-exclusive windows, whether it be on an SVOD service, whether it be in linear cable television. And so we strive to build that catalog and again, feed the audience that is there on Tubi seeking this out. In fact, I don't know if she is here right now, but Sarah Corrigan, who sits on my team, looks after all pay and licensed original acquisitions, is at every market, at every festival, talking to independent filmmakers on how we can buy up the food chain and access some of these films in a much more primary window and also get it to audiences quicker. So a lot would be my answer.
It is a lot. I think I had 1,500. I mean, it's a big number.
Okay, so I have one more clip after this, but this is a valuable conversation because they're addressing the Tubi situation. So if you don't know, Tubi is rising in the past few years in popularity to put indie films on. They're still addressing the same issue because Tubi has a lot of different types of content. It has content from Hollywood, it has Tubi originals, and it also has independent filmmaking. So it's being fed a ton of content. Tubi is not set up to appropriately, at this point, market every single film. And even if they did, you have the question of how many people are on Tubi. Is the market on Tubi large enough to be able to sustain the entire indie film market? And I think that is the question that is being had. And in that video, they present the issue that, like, think about this. Just on Tubi alone, just on the people who are submitting to Tubi, we are talking about, what did they say, like 1,500 films. I don't know if that was, I guess it's annually. So 1,500 films annually. That would mean that Tubi would have to be marketing, like, to get to all of them. And he said month to month it differs, but they would have to be marketing an average of probably, I would say, how many is that? Somewhere around 7 or 8 films a day just to appropriately market on Tubi every indie film that is uploaded. And then that film only gets a day because the next day they're going to have to market. So new films. So like if you think about how Netflix is set up, they have the recommended, the new to Netflix, the continue watching, right? So they have all these, and then you also have categories. You also have genres. And maybe there's something to genres where you could just market specific genres more appropriately on Tubi. But the thing is, this is going to be a constantly turning over process that it's just hard to sustain, right? At least in the traditional way that we understand streamers. All right, let's listen to this last clip, and then I'm going to get to what I believe the solution for indie filmmakers, not for the people who are trying to set up the service, but for indie filmmakers individually.
All of you, to me, represent people who are at the forefront of whatever indie film is going to be evolving into, because to me,
Which is hilarious. At the IndieWire, like indie film conference, they can't define it. And this is where I'm saying at the top of the video, there's a serious problem that no one is going to fix for you. This has been a problem since the beginning of indie filmmaking, and the problem is getting worse as consumption and creation ramps up, because indie filmmakers, like if you're a filmmaker and you're a storyteller and you're passionate about it, you could just go create it. Also, you have all of the YouTube creators, you have all of the people who create video content for their businesses and for entertainment purposes. So indie filmmakers, we're in a tight spot, man. We're in a really tight spot.
it's a given. It is evolving. It is changing in radical ways, some of which we can see, some of which we can't see. And, in 5 years from now, it's going to be completely different all over again. And I think all of you represent different facets of that. Do you have any insights or thoughts that you want to share with the audience in terms of what you think they should be looking for next, what they should be prepared for next? Carrie?
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to take a deep dive, and there's plenty of ways to do this. I'll reference what's in the report I published, but there's plenty of other ways. Take a deep dive into what's happening in what used to be called self-distribution, what I call independent distribution in my report. The technologies, the tools, the case studies, I aggregated some of them in a drive you can go look at.
Translation, YouTube, maybe Tubi. Right? Amazon Prime. That's what she's talking about. Vimeo. That's what she's talking about.
What I'm seeing is an amazing amount, and working with brands, thinking about communities that maybe are underreached. I think that's an area, not obviously for each individual filmmaker out there.
I need her to get specific. She's being too political, and she's trying to be too general, and then it's not helpful because she's been too general. Like, be specific here.
Should know about that, because that may be where you are, and there's lots of things you can do. But I actually feel like for those of you who are in businesses or thinking about building, the tools that are being used in that space to find and meet your audience could be scaled and worked by small exhibitors, by small distributors, by others. There's a lot of...
I don't know why. I feel a little wound up today. And I think that this is frustrating me, because what she's dancing around is start a YouTube channel. Like, that's what she's dancing around a little bit. And it's frustrating that they just won't say that. Just say it. Let us know that we're on our own.
Of interesting stuff happening.
I think that the biggest thing everyone needs to wake up to is everyone thinks the business is cyclical, and I don't agree. I'm more cynical than that. I don't think Netflix is coming back. Like, they've been walking away from the independent film.
Okay, he's being more honest with us. Listen up.
Films and specialty films, and everyone's been hoping they're going to come back. I don't think they are. And so I think filmmakers need to be focused on building their audience and that direct relationship. And even if you get lucky and get a distributor, they don't know who the fuck your audience is either. You do. So you still got to build that up, even if you're going to get lucky and be that film that plays Sundance and sells to however, because if your distributor is not named A24, they don't know marketing. They don't know their audience.
Oh, come on. That is so unfair.
Yeah, I don't think any of them know what they're doing when it comes to marketing.
Just slam on every single distributor out there. A24 is the only one. Yeah.
And you've got to know your audience. So I think, they know their audience, but almost no one else does. So if you know your audience, you can reach your audience, you can drive them to whatever platform you end up on.
I'll triple down on audience and knowing it, but I would take
I'll triple down on audience and knowing it. Okay.
one step further. Learn the skills, access the tools, know how to interpret data. I know I'm speaking to a room full of filmmakers, but as someone who went to the AFI and studied filmmaking, the craft of filmmaking, I think that there is something lost in understanding the specifics about where your audience is, how to move them to a platform, what the data can tell you around developing your film to have the broadest possible reach. And then I would also say and this is not something new to this room, or I think to IndieWire in general, take risks. Take risks on the distribution platforms you're willing to partner with. 5 years ago, had any of you heard of Tubi? right? So be
Okay.
willing to engage early and often with those.
He has to say that he works at Tubi. Okay. All right. So I have a solution. I have thoughts for you to consider and take very seriously. Before I do that, I want to just quickly plug the Patreon, my Patreon. You could either go to the link in the description, join Patreon, or join YouTube memberships. I have a video that comes out every day of the weekdays, so Monday through Friday, as well as podcasts that come out on this channel. You get longer versions of that podcast as well as early. So as soon as they're done being edited, they go to Patreon. So you get them sometimes a week, sometimes a couple days early over on Patreon, and you get longer episodes than what's released publicly for free. You also get your names in the credits of every video and podcast that goes on the channel. So you are credited as a supporter, as someone who helps make the content over here happen, as well as I greatly appreciate it and can continue without thinking about money, just keep creating content that's valuable. And so if you want to consider supporting Patreon, it's only $3.99, $4 a month. Go to the link in the description, or on YouTube, hit join. Either way you prefer, it's the same content. All right. So I have 2 main points to make in regards to breaking free from the problem, breaking free from the serious problem of distribution for filmmakers. And this is for filmmakers specifically. This is not a solution like they're theorizing on how to help the indie market. This is a solution on how to help you. How to help you. I'm talking to someone who has made, 1 to 5 independent films, whether they're long or short, and you are sitting in your parents' house, you're in your mid-20s, maybe early 30s, you're sitting in an apartment, you don't own a home, there's no like upward trajectory financially, there's no, and from like a teenager, you've had visions of becoming a filmmaker, it's what you really love, it's what you really care about. And you're now sitting with a few films under your belt. They didn't get a lot of exposure. They didn't grow any kind of YouTube channel or wherever you post them. Maybe you submitted them to film festivals and it was wasted money because they got rejected, because most film festivals cost money to submit, and then they just take your money and don't show your film anyway. Just kind of a scam. I'm talking to you. And I know how you feel because I have sat there and still sit there. So this is what I want to present. Filmmakers in 2025 and beyond, I can't say forever because the industry changes and the world changes, but at least in 2025, probably for the next 10 years, filmmakers are now content creators. Meaning, you kind of have to stop thinking of yourself as an artist who tells stories that impacts people in the world. That is something we all care about. That is something that we crave. We want people to feel something. We want to tell a story that inspires the public, like we were inspired with one of our favorite films when we were younger. And I'm just going to tell you, you can still do that, but you're going to have to grieve your vision of what that looks like. So, filmmakers today have to become content creators who make films. And what I'm recommending is that you kind of do what a lot of filmmakers do and what I've been attempting to do, which is you're going to have to start creating YouTube content. You are going to need to let people know who you are, let people know what you care about, and let people connect with you in order for them to give a crap about your films. Because once they're watching the film, they could be touched and impacted emotionally. But there's a barrier to viewership. There's an exposure problem. You could put things on your website, you could put it behind a paywall, and to be honest, nobody's going to watch it ever, unless you have an audience of 1,000 loyal fans who are going to go and pay for your film, who are going to go pay $15 to watch your feature film on your Patreon or something, right? And you have to have an audience to do that. You have to have people who care about you. And there's only one way to do that in 2025, and that is content creation, specifically on YouTube. I would recommend YouTube, Rumble, possibly X. But YouTube first, because that is where people discover you and care about long form content. And I know we make short films, but if it's anything longer than 60 seconds and made vertically, if it's horizontal and longer than 60 seconds, you need to get people to care about you in long form. And so some people do that through podcasting. Some people do that through stand-up comedy. Some people do that through talking about politics. And I think filmmakers need to find their content that communicates who they are, what they're passionate about, and what they care about to audiences that is going to find you and stick around. So when you make a film, it grows. All right. I think there's also an option number 2 for filmmakers that can speed up the process. And what I mean by that is when you make a film, to allow it to have the best chance to get as many views as possible. And what I think that is instead of relying on a streamer or someone who's going to take our money to kind of, in theory, help distribute our film. I mean, this guy said, if you're not A24, he thinks that the entire indie market distribution models and businesses and companies like suck. They don't know what they're doing. So stop wasting money on the scams. We just need to stop wasting money on the scams. And you really should probably be focusing on making sure it's available for free on YouTube, right? Or Tubi, if it's, as long as it's free and you just want people to watch it, you need to start building a community. And I mean, if you're on YouTube, there should be other people in the filmmaking space who are also filmmakers who are on YouTube, and they're growing their own audience. And myself, and I'm growing my own audience. And many other people that are trying to grow an audience of loyal viewers who care about indie films, who are signaling into YouTube through their content that we want indie filmmakers and we love indie film here. When you create a community of anywhere from 5 to maybe 100 people, that is going to be the breakthrough method for everybody to have their film watched. And maybe there's different communities of these groups, but ultimately there has to be a community that helps distribute each other's films, that helps give encouragement and helps promote in a give and exchange relationship, right? So that's what I think would be beneficial for indie filmmakers. And you have to think a little bit like, I have to do this for myself. I can't necessarily just go join a Facebook group and that's going to do it for me. No, because what you need is you need people who have their own level of influence, who have their own audience that probably is different than yours. That when that person recommends your film, it means something. And a Facebook group's not going to do that. And a marketing streamer is not going to do that. This issue is not going to be solved by anybody but you. And so I just want to implore you today, going into 2025, start considering what type of content for your own influence growth you can start doing. Because people will watch your film because of you, not necessarily anymore because of what actor you put in it. And not necessarily because even what type of story genre it is. If people care about you, they will watch it irregardless. And then start building a community of other people who are just like you, who are building their own influence and building their own community of people. I think that's the ticket to success. It's a bit simple, but I think that's how we get viewership. I think that's how it works because like we just watched in all these videos, the top minds in the indie filmmaking space, they are filtering everything through solving a problem to make money for them, for their business, solving a problem for you, sort of, that allows them to make money. Tubi, solving a problem for you like ad sharing, but allows them to make money, the most amount of money. And that's what YouTube does as well. The difference is YouTube has the audience there. And if there is some kind of platform, like if Tubi became a YouTube, but just for filmmakers with an algorithm and discovery and people on the platform, then it changes and becomes like, maybe we should consider that. But right now, YouTube is growing and growing and growing. It's going to be $1 trillion business projected in about 3 years. And so the idea is like, where else do you want to be but the place where everybody's at? I got more I could say, but I'll stop right there. I really appreciate it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of all this. I hope it's encouraging, inspiring, and helpful for you. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this, and like the video so a lot of people can see this. A lot of filmmakers will see this video. I'll talk to you next time.